2019 council meeting. Today we acknowledge that this meeting is taking place on the traditional territory of the Indigenous peoples of Turtle Island. We are thankful to share in the special spirit of this place, rich in the energy of Mother Earth, our ancestors, and the love of all creation. I will look to the Deputy Mayor for the motion to adopt the agenda as amended.
Thank you, Mayor Saunderson. It's moved by me and seconded by Councillor Comey. Be it resolved that the content of the council agenda and addendum for September the 16th, 2019 be adopted as amended. The motion receiving the museum minutes of June 20th, 2019 include approval for the artifact gift acceptance.
Thank you, and I will call the vote. All in favor? That is carried unanimously. We're off to a good start. Declarations of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof. Any declarations tonight? If you find yourself in that position as we move through the agenda, please let us know. Adoption of the minutes. Councillor McLeod.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Madigan. Be it resolved that the minutes of the regular meeting of council held August 26th, 2019 be approved as presented.
Thank you very much. Council, any corrections or omissions? Seeing none, I'll call the vote then. All in favor? That is carried unanimously. And any business arising from the previous minutes? Councillor Comey.
Thank you, Your Worship. There was a quick item, and that was item 8.10, and that was on from the consent agenda. We held the PRO assessing the impact of Bill 108 on municipal parks and recreation, and I believe Director Culver did have a quick comment to offer on that.
Director Culver.
Thank you, Worship. In response to Councillor Comey's question in regarding Bill 108, members of the Organization of Parks Recreation Ontario were asked by the board chair to participate in a short survey and submit feedback on messages that a working group of the PRO membership have generated. This feedback collection was in response to the request for feedback from the province. I participated in the survey along with what I'm sure was hundreds of other organization members. Resulting from that feedback, the Town of Collingwood Council consent agenda on August 27 included the response that was submitted to the Province of Ontario. And as a member of PRO, I'm generally supportive of the 4 recommendations that were shared with the Ministry, most having to do with the need for more clarification and implementation detail.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
I see we have an update on Bill 108 on the consent agenda today, so we'll see if any of the regulations passed have any impacts there. Any other business arising? All right, now we're into community announcements, and we have a big swath of red in the audience tonight. A lot of successful soccer players out there. So I'm going to start off, and I'm going to ask head coach Mike Gallo to come up and give us an explanation to us of the success of the Collingwood Canadians under-16 soccer team on your recent trip over to Agropoli, Italy. Mike, welcome.
I didn't know I was going to make a speech, but basically it's an international tournament that's held in Agropoli, Italy, and there's different teams from all parts of the world that can come and participate in the tournament, which is some teams are from the US, from Czechoslovakia, Poland, Italy, France, all over the place. So we got invited to go, and we worked really hard for, I'd say, 1.5 years to fundraise. Through all our efforts, we managed to get enough to go, and we had a great time while we were there. The weather was fantastic, 22 degrees. We were jumping in the ocean in the middle of April, so it was a great trip for all, I hope, and very memorable for me. I've been a couple of times, lost in the finals, a boys team, that managed to win it this time. I'd like to say thank you to all our families that actually buried us for the whole 1.5 years while we scrounged and scrimped and scraped for money to get there. They also supported us while we were there. They also had a great time while they were there, I think. Other than that, not much more to add other than that it was a great, fantastic championship for Canada. It was the first Canadian team, women's team, to ever win the international tournament.
Well, congratulations everyone. We're very glad you could join us tonight, and we have some certificates of recognition for you. Before I get up and Mike help you pass them out. I don't know if there's any comments or questions from around the council table. Seeing none, then we'll get right into the awards stuff.
Well, I just wanted to say one thing. I like they're not here tonight, but the Collingwood United Soccer Club for helping us through all this and really pushing us, and a lot of all these players who played for that team. So thank you to them as well. Yeah. Okay. Well, no, first name.
First name, so if you call them out.
Sure.
Hand them up.
Can I call up Aizen Parish, please? Aizen. Avery Ward. Always Ward. Brooke Dobbs. Yeah, this is not good. She's not here tonight, but Elise Van Boven, and we'll accept that on her behalf. Emma Devins. Hillary Crossan.
Steve too?
Yeah.
Perfect. Jordan Million. Maddie Calder. Maisie Pickus. Another girl who's not here, but we want to thank her, and Michaela French, and her dad was the assistant coach on that trip. Maylee Munn. Michaela Gallo.
How'd you find the coach?
Don't answer that. Not tonight anyway. Regan Gregg. Sydney Allen. Tony Mitz, our goalkeeper. You don't want to put up a trophy? I just want to also thank Rob Crossan as well, who also helped us through the whole year for helping me coach and taking care of these girls, which is a handful. Especially 15 or 16 years old. And the only one more left who's not here, and that's Autumn McDermott.
Like you get in there. I'll go on one side.
Rob, you want to come in, or do you want to? I also want to thank my manager too. Where are you there, Matt? You're hiding him. Come on up, I want a picture. I'll go down on the knee, because I'm the shorter one.
Are we gonna be able to get, yeah?
Right here, ready? Three.
For next year.
Everyone right here. 3, 2, 1. 1, 1. 3, 2. 3, 2, 1. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Yeah, now the parents are one, sorry. Okay. 1, 2, 3. And 1, 2.
Media's table is at a bad spot.
Why don't we just move it then?
I'm just gonna steal somebody's. Professionals take it. Steal it. Oh, God.
Like council, let's have it wrong.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you.
Well, congratulations, guys. Thank you very much. Now you have to work on the title defense. So get out there and get training. All right, we'll now go around the table for community announcements, and I'll start with you, Deputy Mayor.
I have nothing this evening.
Yeah, there's
Councillor McLeod.
I'm going to take up Deputy Mayor Hall's time then. Starting on Friday and running all weekend long, the Collingwood Agricultural Society is welcoming everybody in Collingwood and Clearview and Wasaga Beach and points beyond to its annual fall fair, otherwise known as the Great Northern Exhibition. Not too late to become an exhibitor if you really think that you can beat me at the butter tart competition, which has not happened yet. The entire prize list is online at greatnorthernx.com. Exhibits are accepted all day Wednesday and Thursday morning, and buses are running to and from the grounds all weekend with bus stops in Collingwood and at the Superstore in Wasaga Beach, and always, as always, the weather is going to be perfect. See you at the fair. That's it.
Councillor Comey.
Thank you, Your Worship. There is a back-to-school dance being held on Friday, September 27th for grade 5 to 8 students at the Collingwood Legion from 7 to 10 p.m. It's $10 at the door with DJ prizes and snacks for sale in support of the Collingwood Girls U16 soccer team's trip to Italy. This also seems like a good time to remind everyone about the upcoming Fisher Field Open House being held on October 3rd from 7 to 9 p.m. in the library, 3rd floor, Community Room B and C. Director Culver and his team are looking forward to seeing our residents and hearing much valued input on the clubhouse design. And I'd also like to say thank you to the town staff who've been volunteering to serve as crossing guards while our new hires are being trained. It's a very important role in the safety of our school children, and it is much appreciated by our residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Madigan.
Thank you very much. In regards to Councillor McLeod's butter tart challenge, I will, as well as Councillor Berman, our money might be on Councillor Jeffrey, but we're happy to be the testers, the guinea pigs. Kathy's baking can set Collingwood on fire, so no pressure on that one. You can. That's it. We'll just pause for how good your baking is, and then we'll continue on. Some interesting stuff within the arts and culture. Hella Sandberg, longtime arts and culture aficionado in the area, and Sharon McNabb have finally started to work together. And what they're trying to do is they're putting together a history of arts and culture that's happened in Collingwood over the many years. Hella's been involved since the late 70s, early 80s. And Sharon has come on and compiled theatres of Collingwood and the shows that have been played there. So what they're doing is they're going the old route, and they're asking for all artists out there to submit an 8x11 bio sheet and some of their artwork, and they're going to compile it. They have a beautiful selection over at the library already, but they're asking for all artists in the community to do this. And what it does is it just helps people that don't go on the internet, don't go on the computer, and they still use our fantastic library. So if you have any questions, please contact Ms. Sandberg at 705-445-2999 or Ms. McNabb at 705-445-0533. And a wonderful event that we had at the Eddie Bush. Hockey was back, 1,300 fans strong. We're not going to talk about the outcome. We're going to talk about 1,300 people in the audience. But we will talk about that their number one goalie did get called up to Barrie Colts that night. So it was great to see the Eddie alive and rocking again, and it was fantastic to see most councillors out there supporting our town and the community there. It was welcome to town, Colts, and Dave Steele and your organization. And good job, Mayor Saunderson, on the history lesson at the start. Good job. It was a great event, and it was nice to see everybody there. The next game is this Saturday coming up versus Markham, and even though they did lose, they're still in first place, tied for first place. So not too shabby. Congratulations, boys, and the team. Thank you.
Thank you. Winning record, 2-1, and we're looking forward to big things this year. And they've sold over 600 tickets for this game on this Saturday. So if you want your tickets, get out there and get them now. We're gonna have a full barn all year. Councillor Doherty.
I have nothing, Your Worship, tonight, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Berman.
I have nothing, thank you.
Councillor Jeffrey.
No pressure. Thank you, Mayor Saunderson. I just wanted to announce that at the Farmers Market on October 5th, the Police Services Board members and members of the OPP Auxiliary are going to be available at our town booth to answer questions and give you information with respect to the programs and awareness and preventative measures and opportunities you have in the town of Collingwood.
Thank you. Councillor Hamlin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Two things, both arts and culture related. First of all, this Thursday at the Marsh Street Centre, there's an event being put on in partnership between our own Blue Mountain Foundation for the Arts and the Institute of Southern Georgian Bay on the topic of exploring a regional arts and cultural world. And the title of the event, it's going to be a panel discussion, is Arts and Culture, a Significant Driver for Economic Growth in Creative and Healthy Regions. There's a great panel for those who might be interested. Stuart Reed is going to be the moderator. He is the executive director for the Community Foundation of Grey Bruce. Sandra Dupree, who's the vice president at the Halliburton School of Arts, will be there. John Hartman, who's the chair of the Midland Cultural Center. Dean Holland, who's the theatre director at the Marsh Street Center, and Erica Angus, our own executive director of Theatre Collingwood. So it should be an interesting discussion that night, and it starts at 7 o'clock. The second thing I wanted to mention is this Saturday night in Collingwood is our annual art crawl, and that takes place from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. It's a free event. This year there's going to be 40 artists, there's going to be 40 musicians, lots of live music, incredible art, different vendors, and I just encourage everyone to come out and support it. It's just so much fun. Thank you.
Thank you. I will be there Thursday night. I think it'll be an excellent discussion. A couple of announcements from myself. This past week there was the Special Olympics annual banquets for the athletes, and on Thursday we received, Town of Collingwood received 2 plaques from the Collingwood and Area Special Olympics. One to the Town of Collingwood for our support through the Mayor's Golf Tournament, and we've been supporting them, I think, since the inception 23 years ago. And the other, and that will probably hang in the boardroom, Town Hall boardroom, and the second plaque that went to our Parks and Recreation Department for their support with the swimming and softball team. So, Director Culver, I will give you this, and you can proudly hang this in your work area up there. And just going back to the comments about the hockey, it was great to be at the Eddie Bush this past weekend. It was fun to deliver a little bit of a history lesson, Councillor Madigan, because we're rich in history, and now we have a new future. So it was nice to see that hockey come back to the barn, and a new chapter in that historical building. While we're into stats, because hockey loves stats, out of 213 Junior A franchises in Ontario, Collingwood had the biggest sellout audience for its home opener, and we're well on our way to selling out the second game. So we're a hotbed of hockey, and we're looking forward to a great season. And go Colts, go! And with that, we will move on to the, we don't have any public meetings tonight, we don't have any deputations, so we're at the consent agenda, and who would have that?
Me, Your Worship.
Councillor Comey.
Thank you. Moved by me, seconded by Councillor Doherty. Be it resolved that the general consent agenda, having been given due consideration by council, be received. And those are items 8.1 through 8.7.
Thank you. So first I will call the vote on receiving the consent agenda, and then I will ask for items to be pulled. So first calling the vote, all in favor? That is carried unanimously, and items to be pulled. We've got a few, starting with Councillor Jeffrey.
8.2 and 8.3, please, Mayor Saunderson.
8.2 and 8.3, all right. Councillor Doherty.
8.6, please.
6. Councillor Comey.
8.7, please.
7. And Councillor McLeod.
8.1, please.
All right, now I am going to call item 8.5, and I'm going to pull rank. So 8.5 is the proclamation of September 28, 2019 as British Home Child Day. And this is something I was not aware of until I saw the request come across this year. And it's something that has had a great impact locally on our history. So I'm going to ask Carol Stewart if you could please come forward and just give us a bit of the history so that people understand what this is about. Welcome, Carol.
Thank you very much, everybody. It's rather interesting that they've chosen to create a British Home Child Day in Canada, and it's rather long overdue in that most people don't even know what a home child is. And they might be wondering, why British Home Child Day when this is Canada? And I'll give you a little background history so that you understand what this is all about. Because I think most people now, and I know certainly my own family and my own children and my own grandchildren, they had no idea what a home child was. And I think it's about time and that they were recognized. In the mid-1800s, before compulsory education, Great Britain began to experience a major problem with vast number of homeless children roaming the streets and stealing from street vendors in order to survive. And many of these children died of exposure, sickness, and hunger. This had never been a major issue before. It suddenly came up at that point because the Industrial Revolution was in full swing in Britain. And of course, families left the countryside to move into the cities, and they left behind their families and their support group. And because of this, when something unfortunate happened in a family, if a father was injured due to an industrial accident or suffered illness, there was no support group to look after the children that were left behind and to feed the family. And mothers, women could work in those days, but the jobs were very poorly paid for women, and who was going to look after the children while they were at work? This was a major issue there. And so, in the towns where industrial accidents were not uncommon and there was no compensation for lives lost or injuries sustained, mothers of large families were forced to give up their children into care. And there were a large number of charitable institutions, particularly when this problem became major, that got together to try and figure out what were they going to do with all these children who were roaming the streets and starving and spreading disease and so forth. And so it was decided that they needed to do something for these children to give them a chance to succeed in life by teaching them the virtues of hard work, honesty, and self-reliance. The Bernardo homes were one of the largest of these organizations. So emigration was seen as a brilliant solution. That was always Britain's solution. How do you get rid of your convicts? Send them overseas. So the children would be sent to Canadian farms under contract. The terms would require that the children be housed, fed, clothed, and sent to school. A small fee would be paid for fostering younger children, and older children would help with the chores, and more extended labor would be required from adolescents. At 18, the terms of indenture were to be discharged. The clean, fresh air of the Canadian farm was seen as a better alternative to living in the slums of a large city. And it sounds like an ideal solution, and for some children, it worked out well. But generally speaking, they were the exception. The reality was, for most children, it was a different reality. Brought over in ships with brothers and sisters, they were separated on arrival, and many were never reunited. Farmers viewed the boys as cheap labor, and there are many stories of boys being required to sleep in a barn with just a simple blanket to keep them warm. They were given leftovers that the family hadn't eaten for meals, and it was a tough life for them. Girls were kept as domestics, subject to long hours of work. They had to, lay the fires, light the fires, get up early in the morning to stoke the wood stove in the morning so that the house was warm by the time the family arrived downstairs. And these were all things that were required of the children often before they went to school. And but particularly with homeboys, I mean, they were expected again to get up, light the fire so that the house was warm when the housewife came down. But they were also expected to water and feed the horses, chop the firewood, bring the firewood into the house so it was available during the day. Then they could go to school, and so they were often late going to school. And the communities where these children lived viewed them as somewhat less than human. They were taunted at school by the other children for being a home child, and viewed by teachers as not worthy of spending time on, as they would never amount to anything. Every kind of abuse that you can imagine happened, and many suicides happened, a lot of runaways. So it's not a bad thing that at long last we are recognizing what these children went through. And I have been collecting over the years in the library stories of the home children. Our past mayor, Sandra Cooper, her grandfather was a home child who came over to Canada with two of his brothers. And again, they were separated when they got here, although they did reunite later, and some were lucky enough to reunite with family. But sometimes they were completely lost and they never did reunite. So these stories should be remembered. I'm collecting them, and actually this afternoon, after I was asked to come and speak here, I actually received a phone call from somebody else whose grandmother was a home girl, and so he's going to bring his information in to me tomorrow. So I invite anybody in the Collingwood area to bring in their stories of their families so that I can add them to our collection. Right now I have them listed in a Bernardo file, but I think I'm just going to change that to a home child file because they weren't all Bernardo children, they were from all over. Alf Staples, as many of you know, our Collingwood's man of nature, he was a home child. And so I have the stories of these children and many others. So I invite people to bring in their stories, and so that we can share them with the community. And I'm going to use that date of September 28th as a day that we can educate people in the Collingwood area about what happened to these children and about their stories. It's important that it not be forgotten. So thank you very much for your time.
Carol, thank you for that sobering story. If people want to get in touch with you, how would they contact you?
They can contact me through the Collingwood Public Library. Our phone number is 705-445-1571. My extension is 6228, so they can leave a message for me, and I can arrange a time when I will be there and I can meet up with them. We can talk over the stories, and I would only copy the files that they have. I wouldn't keep the files. Because I think it's important that they hold on to those files for themselves. So I want them to know that they're not giving up what they have. All they're doing is adding to our collection here. So, thank you.
Thank you very much for coming today. The will be an official flag raising next Monday, September 23rd, and the official day is September 28th, and the flag will be lit up on that day. Unless there's any other questions or comments around the table, we'll move on to item 8.2, Councillor Jeffrey.
Thank you very much, Mayor Saunderson. Just noting that it's a letter from Minister Clark with respect to Bill 108, and I was simply going to ask if we could refer this letter to DevOp for an update from Director Farr to the impacts on us.
Yes, we'll do that. And 8.3, Councillor Jeffrey.
Thank you. 8.3 also came up at my FCM meeting last week, and it's a resolution of the City of Kitchener calling on the federal government to address or stop the use of single-use disposable wipes going into our systems. And I was just wondering if it would make sense for us to maybe move this initiative for consideration by the Greening Committee, and possibly through Director McDonald to Manager Slama with respect to maybe awareness or education for our residents as to what should not go into the system. And one that always comes to my mind is prescription drugs, to tell people for sure, never put prescription drugs into our system.
That's an excellent suggestion. Just looking at the wording of the resolution, it talks about a definition for the word flushable and what should and should not be going down the toilet. So I'll pass that along to Director McDonald.
Thank you.
Thank 6, Councillor Doherty.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, and what I really wanted to do was just flag the fact that the town of Collingwood will be declaring the week of September 29th through to October 6th as Pink Week, and that is in recognition of the fact that 1 in 8 Canadian women will experience breast cancer in their lifetime, so it is still a very serious disease that affects a lot of women, and hopefully by bringing this to the attention of our community and the fact that there is a CIBC Run for the Cure close to us on that week, that we can not only recognize but also perhaps make a donation to someone who might be running for the cause. Thank you.
Thank you. And 8.7, Councillor Comey.
Thank you. And that is also a proclamation, and it's a proclamation saying that from October 1st to 7th, we are proclaiming it National Breastfeeding Week in the town of Collingwood. And we have some language in the proclamation which says Collingwood is committed to protecting and supporting breastfeeding within our community, which is some good supportive language. And we are also having a flag raising for this proclamation, and that will be on Wednesday, October 2nd at 11:30 in the morning at the library.
Thank you. I think that does it for items to be pulled.
No.
Oh, sorry, Councillor McLeod.
8.1.
8.1, right at the top, I left you out, I apologize.
That is all right. It is the update from the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority from our board meeting held on August the 23rd. And I just wanted to highlight for my colleagues here at this table the item on the right-hand side, letter from the Minister of Environment, Conservation and Parks. And this has caused quite a bit of consternation for people connected with conservation authorities right across Ontario. On August the 16th, just before the Association of Municipalities of Ontario conference in Ottawa, the Minister of Environment, Conservation and Parks sent a letter to all conservation authorities telling them to wind down all services that were not directly connected with their core mandate, which is being redefined under Bill 108. However, core mandate has not yet been addressed in Bill 108's regulations. Therefore, it is pretty difficult to know what one's core mandate is and how to wind down services that are not connected thereto. So the chair or the CAO of the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority has replied saying that the NVCA will continue to do the work that it does, and budget preparations are in place and are taking place rather with an expected budget increase this year of 2.6%, I think, at this point. So there hasn't been a huge impact for the municipalities which fund the NVCA. And just to bring to my colleagues' attention, the provincial government funds the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority to the tune of $188,000 each year, which was cut in June in mid-year to $97,000 this year. And for your information, the town of Collingwood provides to the NVCA somewhere around $450,000 for its work. So there are some questions being raised about whether the province should be telling an agency to wind down its operations when the provincial government provides less than 1% of that agency's budget, and that is a discussion that is taking place elsewhere, but I just wanted to bring my colleagues up to speed that those conversations are taking place.
Thank you. Look forward to an update on the response.
Oh, actually, that was my second paragraph, sorry. There has been a meeting between the chair of our Conservation Authority and, the chair of Conservation Ontario, which is the umbrella organization for the 36 conservation authorities, and their general manager and Minister Urick, to try to perhaps explain to him a little, to provide a little more understanding perhaps of the work that is done by conservation authorities, and they're working on building that relationship with him and educating him a little bit. And he's been invited to a meeting that is taking place next week, and I will provide an update when that happens.
Good. Thank you. Did I get everyone? All right. Then we will move on to reports, minutes of other committees and boards. 9.1, who would have that? Councillor Jeffrey.
Thank you, Mayor Saunderson. Moved by me and seconded by Councillor McLeod. Be it resolved that council hereby receive the Police Services Board minutes of August 12th, 2019.
Thank you very much. Council, any questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. 10, reports and minutes of other committees and boards. 10.1, who would have that?
That is me.
Councillor Maddox.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Berman. Be it resolved that council hereby receive the following minutes and recommendations herein be approved. Of the Accessory Advisory Committee minutes, May 29th and June 26th, 2019. Collingwood Downtown BIA Board of Management minutes, June 13th and July 11th, 2019. The Museum Advisory Committee minutes, May 16th and June 20th, 2019. The recommendation is that the recommended list of new gifts attached to the June 20th, 2019 Museum Advisory Committee minutes be approved. And, last but not least, the Trails Advisory Committee minutes, May 9th, June 11th, and July 11th, 2019.
Thank you very much, Councillor Madigan. Any questions or comments before I call the vote? Councillor Jeffrey.
Thank you, Mayor Saunderson. On the museum minutes, and I'm trying to find them right now, when I was reading the new hours, I found it curious that we were closed on Friday, but when I asked Director Culver, apparently there might be a typo, so I just was wondering if the director could report maybe to corporate services if there's some confusion between what the actual hours of the museum were and what was in the minutes.
So we're just going to get confirmation
Yes.
of the actual
What the actual hour changes were.
Absolutely, we can do that, Director Culver. Good. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Doherty.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, and actually it was also in regard to the museum minutes from June, and specifically the change in the hours of operation, and through you to the directors, just wondering how that change had been received. It does for, I'm thinking in particular for our tourist information function, whether 5 o'clock is a good time to be closing, or whether we might be missing people who would be arriving in the community later than that.
Director Culver.
Through you, Your Worship, with the separation from the South Georgian Bay Tourism Association, museum no longer has responsibility for tourism information, so it is a pure function as a museum alone. The hours that were proposed and constitute the fall hours were based on analysis of traffic over the past, and that's how we arrived at the current hours being offered.
Okay, thank you.
I guess as a follow-up, Director Culver, are you able to assist in, is there any tourism outlet for information that visitors can go to?
Through your worship, the South Georgian Bay Tourism Association has adopted a new model, kind of an ambassador approach. I know Director Ridlow can speak to it in terms of the strategy and structure behind that, but there are I think the plan is to have sort of satellite locations being able to offer tourism information.
Come on, if you're able, Director Ridlow.
Good evening, Mayor Saunderson and Council. Over the last year, South Georgian Bay Tourism Association has gone through a strategic transition. It's renamed itself. You've probably seen downstairs that it's also got a new logo. And as part of that analysis, what became abundantly aware was that tourists now are looking for a different kind of experience. They're doing most of their searching through digital means. And second of all, they may not necessarily just be coming to Collingwood, for example. They may have multiple entry points. So what the Tourism Association has morphed into is more of an information dissemination resource. And in doing so, what they've done is they found satellite locations, as Director Culver mentioned, in each of the partnership communities, municipalities in the region. So in Collingwood, for example, we have 2 locations that act as our ambassadors, one of them being Blue Mountain Tea, and the other location is living water resort. What that also allows is it actually provides traffic into those businesses. So it's a real win-win scenario. They are briefed up every week. They have people that come and update them in terms of what's going on. So it's become really a morphing of our association as something that we believe actually is going along with the times, and we believe it'll continue to provide the same kind of service, if not even better, to tourists coming to the region.
Good. Thank you, Martin. Any other questions or comments before I call the vote then? Councillor Hammond.
Yes, I noticed, Mr. Mayor, in the minutes for the Trails Advisory Committee that there has been discussion in a few meetings about changing the name of the committee from Collingwood Trails to Active Transportation Advisory Committee. I would guess in recognition of the fact that not only do they look after trails, but they're commenting on bike routes and those kind of things. I'm just wondering what the status of the change of name is. I think it's a great idea, and I just was wondering how that will actually be accomplished, and if there's anything that will be coming to council on that.
Director Culver.
Thank you, Mayor. The Trails Committee, following the PRC Master Plan, which kind of identified that the Trails Committee should evolve to an active transportation committee, or where there should be that should be a tested concept. Staff basically reached out to the Trails Committee and said, if a mandate change, what would that look like from your perspective? So they've offered that. They've offered some suggestions along those lines. But we have a large process to go through to arrive at a place where a new terms of reference could be established. We're consulting with Public Works and Engineering. We're consulting with the clerks in terms of what does the governance. There's a lot of parts and pieces to it, and it's going to be an extensive process to get there. But what they're reflecting on was the request from staff for them to offer some input into that concept.
Thank you very much.
Good, then I will call the vote. All in favor? And it's carried unanimously. Thank you. Councillor Madigan, 10.2.
Moved by me, seconded by Councillor Berman. Be it resolved that staff report E2019-43 be received and the council direct staff to apply for the Simcoe County 2019 Economic Development Funding Program, which offers the community up to $50,000 to advance economic development before the deadline of November 5th, 2019. And further, that in the event the town is successful in securing county council approval to the Simcoe County 2019 Economic Development Funding Program application, council directs staff to enter into a partnership with the Centre for Business and Economic Development, CBED, to hire a consultant to investigate and develop a plan for a program that would accelerate the time it takes for a company to go from a moderate success to a high growth leader. 2. Work in collaboration with the CBED to define the consultant's deliverables, RFP evaluation, criteria, and sit on the selection committee. 3. Direct $25,000 from the county funds to the CBED in December 2019, contributing to a larger pool of funds being raised by the CBED to hire the consultant. Direct $25,000 of the county funds to the CBED in March 2020 based on the consultant achieving key deliverables within the first 3 months. And lastly, work with the CBED to present to council the business plan, funding, and organizational model.
Thank you. The Corporate and Community Services received a lengthy presentation and their staff report is attached. Are there any questions or comments before I call the vote? Councillor Madigan.
Just before we call the vote, Mayor, if you could please just give a very brief county perspective on why it's vitally important that we give this a sounding endorsement.
Yes, so the funding that will be used to implement the accelerator, or to hire the consultant to look into the viability and the mandate of and the structure of this going forward, is coming largely from the county, $50,000, and the county has worked very closely with the member municipalities over the last 5 or 6 years to provide seed money to each municipality for their economic development. And in fact, the Economic Development Center is a creature of part of that funding. So in moving forward, to obtain the $50,000. The deadline was actually last Friday, but the county has extended it to allow us to have the vote today to apply, and the funding will be announced on December 3rd. But certainly, I think it's an important message from this council to show the county that we are fully behind this opportunity, that we support the concept of the accelerator, and in order to really have a good sense of how that would look moving forward, it's important to hire the consultant to look at the feasibility and the structure and the funding model for the business plan to make this happen moving forward. And that really, I think, is the short answer, Councillor Madigan.
Thank you. Thank you very much. No, I just think the public should know how important this is. And also, if we are lucky and able to receive these funds, then there is another angel investor that will put in $30,000 of his company's own money to help accelerate and meet the demands of this project.
And I think the BIA is also part of the putting in $10,000
Yes.
as well. So there's many parties that are prepared to partner on this exciting opportunity. Any other questions or comments, Council? Councillor Doherty.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to get clarity on what the town's commitment is for this year.
I think, well, I will look to the CAO, but my understanding is the town's commitment is based on the funding coming from the county. If that funding doesn't come, then we're back to square one and we'll be re-examining how we might finance that. So this is flow-through funding from the town's perspective.
Okay, so, because I was just taking from the report that we were looking at a cost overall of about $100,000, and we were getting 50 from the county, 30 from the private enterprise, 10 from Sept, so the balance is from the town, the 10,000.
There's no, I'll look for the CAO confirmation, but my understanding there's no money from the town, that we're looking at the 90,000 to get us where we need to go here.
Mayor Saunderson, as the chair, I can speak to that because that question was brought up and I do remember the answer.
Okay.
Yeah, so as you stated that it is funding represented at the county, but absolutely no money is being asked of the town at this point. And as Mayor Saunderson did say, if the money does not come, because Councillor MacLeod asked that question, then they will re-examine it. So it's not a done deal. We're pleasantly awaiting the money from the county, but no money has been asked of the town or the taxpayers as of yet.
Great, thank you. Not that I'm complaining about the initiative at all. It's an excellent initiative.
Good. Unless there's any other comments, I'm going to call the vote. All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Councillor Madigan, the Standing Committee report.
Thank you, sir. Moved by me, seconded by Councillor MacLeod. Be it resolved that Council receive the Corporate and Community Services Standing Committee report from its meeting held September 9th, 2019 as presented.
Is there anything you want to add to that?
No, it was just that was a really, really great meeting. We had a lot of positive people come from the public to that meeting, and it was nice to hear from the fire chief about his very, very busy summer within the community and out on the water. And it was, I thought that was one of the best meetings that our committee has ever had, and it was well attended. Very well attended.
Good. Thank you. Any other questions or comments, Council? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Staff reports, 11.1, this is something that came, I think, from that committee meeting, and DRC 2019-13. Do you have that, Councillor Madigan?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Moved
Moved by me, seconded by Councillor Berman. Be it resolved that staff report PRC 2019-13 be received and the council approve the additional expenditures of $32,500 to add drains to the floor of the Centennial Aquatic Center change rooms.
Thank you. Is there anything you'd like to say?
I would love to say this was one of the negative parts of the meeting. It was a very good news meeting. And questions were asked of Director Culver if we had any recourse in maybe looking back at the installation or the people that installed it. We were told that it fell out of warranty, so I brought up that I really didn't care about warranty. If it was done negligible, it shouldn't matter about warranty, so we are awaiting, and if Director Culver has any update on that, we were awaiting feedback between the two companies. It was a little bit depressing because the pool is there, I've had people from Jean Rainy reach out to me that they don't know where their kids are going to train now, because their season starts, and it kind of makes me open my eyes a little bit and wonder if there's any more problems within these facilities that were built at the time, and if we could do any troubleshooting so nothing arises. Because if we're well past warranty, we might as well put it in now if it was negligible when it was put in. So I'm not asking for an update, but I do wonder if there was more problems than just these that are arising now. And it's frustrating because we're kind of handcuffed by it, and we can't do anything other than just say, well, we'll have to fix it. And I think $32,500 could be spent elsewhere. And these companies that built these pools that assured us that they knew that what they were doing, unfortunately, obviously did not. And I think they should be held accountable by every means, and I think the town should take a stand on this. So after that long-winded ask,
Are you proposing something?
I am proposing a very friendly proposal that we ask for Director Culver and his team of people and the people that are there to maybe look into the facilities that were built at the same time, to maybe look through it a little bit with a closer eye to see if there's any other problems. These facilities are not that old, and to go through the issues that we have so quickly, they were put in place before Director Culver came, and he is taking the brunt of it, and it's unfortunate for him. And it's unfortunate for this council and past councils that we have to in the future. So
So hold that thought. I'm gonna go around the table and then we'll come back and I'll look to the director to address that idea. So, Councillor Hamlin.
I'm in support of generally of the idea that's been raised. It seems to me these issues that the town's being asked to pay for, which is almost $400,000, are things that we would have expected to have been done properly. Some of them are to correct items that did not meet the building code. And, you know, the whole part of a pool is the draining of the floors, and clearly they weren't, the facility was not constructed properly. So if we are proceeding, and that would be my recommendation, that we seek legal advice on how to handle this, I do think it would be helpful to do some kind of, I'll call it a building inspection, to make sure we pick up everything that we would be asking be corrected. Those would be my thoughts.
Thank you, Councillor Hamlin. When you say $400,000, I take it you're looking at the list of unscheduled repairs and remedial work that's been done since 2016, which totals about $360,518.
That's it, all of that
Yes.
should be, we should be looking to see what our rates are, would be my view.
And that breaks down to 6 sessions of unplanned repair or maintenance. If I could look to Director Culver, do you have an idea of the total downtime that the pool's been closed to allow for these repairs?
Through your worship, that wasn't a number that we gathered for this report, and it's a little bit it's a difficult one to assess because we would expect to do annual shutdown maintenance anyway. So a lot of the stuff we tried to do well, we would be doing a normal rotation of maintenance and turnover. So how much additional hours were added to deal with some of these kinds of issues, I don't actually have that number, but I can get it if needed.
Well, I understand this time we're projecting an additional closure of about 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks at this point for the work to be done. And I guess just to follow up on the thread that Councillor Madigan tugged, we had sent a letter, as I understand it, to BLT about the issues. Did we receive a response?
Thank you, Worship. Yes, we received a response where they offered to send a person to take a look at the issue. We responded in the affirmative, supporting that idea. They have not responded yet.
Okay, thank you for that. Council, questions or comments? Councillor Comey.
Thank you. Through your worship, Director Culver, you said you sent a letter to BLT. They haven't responded yet. Are we talking weeks or just recently?
Through your worship, we sent the letter immediately once the issue was discovered.
So what's the timeline on that, please?
I think it was discovered about Thursday, two Thursdays ago.
Thank you.
Councillor McLeod.
Through you, your worship, to Director Culver. I'm sorry to put you on the spot regarding the companion building that went up at the same time as this one. Do we know whether there has been unscheduled repairs required at the rink as well? And I understand if you can't answer that at this time.
Director Culver.
So through your worship to Councillor McLeod, I'm just reaching into my memory, and unfortunately our manager, Mel Milanic, is here and can sort of nod or shake his head, I hope. I don't believe we've had any interior issues of the same nature, the same kind of challenges at the Central Park Arena. The Centennial Pool seems to be a little specific in this case.
Thank you.
All right, so Councillor Madigan, we're going to come back to you, and my understanding is you've requested a building envelope inspection to look at further repairs or issues to identify those. And
Yeah, hopefully not to find any extra ones, but yeah, I just would hate to see any unforeseen ones coming after this. If BLT is going to come out and do an on-site inspection, I would like to have as much information as we possibly can so our team can kind of hold them to it.
right, so
No, I don't know at what length we can do that. I don't know if I'm sure our team at the building department is well educated in things, but I think we might need some expertise in other.
So I guess looking to Director Culver, is there some means, Director Culver, that we can, I understand we've engaged BLT and they will be coming out to have a look. Is there some mechanism that we can do a thorough inspection that would try to identify any further issues at this time, or do you have any thoughts on that?
Through your worship, I think that I'll need to have a conversation with staff to figure out what exactly we can do that would satisfy the request. We do building analysis on a continuous and constant basis, working to make the spaces healthy and productive environments for our patrons. So getting into a deeper level of analysis, I'd have to figure out whether that's, is that engineering, is that another level of inspection. I don't know at this moment. So if I was given the opportunity to consult with staff, I could come back with some recommendations, maybe at standing committee.
So if we leave it in staff's hands with the request that you come back, is coming back at the next council meeting too soon, or can we do that within 2 weeks?
No, I think we can have the conversation and come back. I'd like to prepare council for the idea that it's not an easy project to define. So I just want to prepare you for the fact that we may come back and say we're doing all we can. But I think definitely by the next council meeting I could do a brief update. I don't know if you're expecting a report or anything, but it would be just a brief update.
So as I understand where we're heading this discussion, we're looking at trying to get a thorough analysis of the building that might inform any further steps by the town on this issue. So when you say a brief update, I think we're trying to figure out a way that we can satisfy ourselves of what kind of remedies are appropriate and open to us and what is worth pursuing. So the CAO for suggestions on that.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I don't think it would be an issue to do a visual inspection and come back with some recommendations, but I think if you're looking at a deep dive, and if you're looking at structural or engineering or other types of analysis, that would require a lot more time and a lot more effort and a lot more money. So I think we should be clear on what the expectations are. If you're looking for our basic routine inspection, we can do that and come back with a report. If you're looking at something more than that, I would suggest that it might take a bit longer and would probably require some more resources to do it. So If it's a routine maintenance inspection, that's pretty easy to accomplish within the timelines we're talking about. If it's something more than that, I think it would be a bit longer to undertake if we're going to make decisions based on that inspection and that analysis.
This is Councillor Mather.
Yeah, so through that wonderful bit of advice, we've got the people there fixing the pool right now. We have the experts there fixing the issues right now. So everything is open right now. Maybe if they could just have a quick look and tell us, and I'm happy to have it come back to committee, which would give them an extra week. I'm not looking for them to open the floor up and open the walls up. I'm just, I'm looking at unplanned expenditures that I don't want to see anymore over the next couple months.
Yes, thank you. And I think that's my concern. I mean, I think we discovered what we discovered because the tiles were lifted, and we discovered more than what we expected to discover. But I want to caution council that if the report coming back to committee is expected to be an exhaustive, comprehensive report to tell you what the future might look like in terms of renovation costs, that might be misleading. Because we may not do the analysis in an in-depth way to be able to get all that information before council. If you want an in-depth analysis of the entire building and any defects that might occur in the future, that's a much more detailed analysis than a routine inspection that we normally do. I guess that's my only point. So that, you know, we may come up with a report in 2 weeks to say, here's our analysis, and then 5 years from now, there could be something that we did not uncover because we didn't do the deep dive that you probably were expecting. So that's my only caution. It's not that we're not going to do the work, but I think I just want to manage expectations coming back. And the report that comes back to committee, I think will make some of those assumptions clear so that you know what you're getting into and you know what you're receiving.
Okay, so I'm not looking for anything 5 years out. I don't expect Director Culver to use his words from 5 years ago. He doesn't have a crystal ball, and I don't expect him to have a crystal ball. But some of these expenditures came 3 years after being built brand new, and that is my concern. And that will continue to be my concern, because unfortunately, at the end of the day, the taxpayers are the ones that have to pay for this, and we're the ones held accountable for it. So this is our job as elected officials to make sure that if the walls are open, if the floors are open, just maybe have a better look, because some of these could have been avoided.
Well, this, I think, is a very large concern for all of this council, so I'm in agreement with you there. We know that since these buildings have come online, our operating deficit for Parks and Rec has gone up by over $500,000. This is $360,000 that we weren't anticipating to spend, and the total cost of these buildings was $3.6 million. So that is a very tight window to incur costs of that nature. So I would look to Director Culver to the extent that we can identify through visual inspection, and we know it's very difficult to do that. And I guess in the report that comes back, perhaps if there are other issues that suggest there may be something deeper that require a deep dive, then maybe we can get that indication in the report. But moving forward, I think there are issues with this building. They're ongoing, and if the warranty has become an issue, then we need to talk. I think the discussion goes a little broader than this. So I'm hoping that in the report, then Director Culver, you know, we can be as thorough as we can given the circumstances of this inspection. Councillor Doherty and then Councillor Jeffrey.
Thank you, Your Worship. So, and I'm picking up a little bit on what Councillor Hanlon suggested in terms of looking at our own potential recourse with BLT. And I'm thinking right off the hop, I'm not sure whether it should be the municipality that is doing a more detailed inspection of the state of the building on its own dime, and at this point in time, should we not be inviting BLT to come out and have a good hard look at what's going on in our facility, and perhaps with a view to how can we ameliorate those conditions with BLT.
So I think we hear the suggestion. I think we're getting into broader legal discussions, and I don't think that's the night to go there. But I understand what you're saying. Okay, so
Because-
duly noted.
Because it's not the first time, we've gone through this with the library as well, and issues with the library, so, you know, it's time to play hardball.
Councillor Jeffrey.
Thank you, Mayor Saunderson. I guess my question was, in terms of the report back, it might be better if we could have an understanding what that broader discussion would cost. Just have some idea of the cost of a deeper dive. Because for me to sit here and make a decision, do I want a simple analysis, do I want the broader one? Well, I'm envisioning some horrible numbers, but if I have the real numbers, I can actually think about it in real time.
Yeah, I think it's a good suggestion. Councillor McLeod.
I just want to echo through your worship what Councillor Jeffrey has had to say, and also express my disappointment. We are hearing testimony through the judicial inquiry about what may have been a bad process, and now it appears that we got a bad building as well, which we, I guess, knew, but just is extremely disappointing and frustrating to have it laid out in front of us and to be contemplating spending additional money to find out just how bad it is frustrating.
Councillor Hamlin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a comment, which is while staff's looking at this and if they're speaking to legal advisors on our next steps, to keep in mind that the Ontario limitation periods for commencing actions are quite short now. So
It's 2 years from the date of discovery.
Yeah, so and I see some of this works
Yeah.
sort of lengthy, so I just wanted to make that comment.
Okay, thank you. Any other?
Aye.
Yeah, Deputy Mayor.
It's actually a question of clarification specific to the staff report. We're being asked to approve $32,500. There was reference to an invitation via letter to BLT to come up and look at the work. I'm hoping that we're not waiting on them to come back and that we will, assuming that we unanimously approve this tonight, that we'll commence with work tomorrow. Am I correct in that assumption?
Director Culver.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, we really need to move forward to not impose upon the users anymore. So we highly recommend the approval of this motion, but I've taken all of council's input into consideration, and we'll be able to report back either at the standing committee, or I think the standing committee would probably be the best.
All right, well, before I call the vote, I just want to get clarification from CA or clerk in terms of the request for the inspection. Is that something that should be incorporated in this motion, or is it a separate motion, or how do you want to proceed on this?
I think it should be incorporated into the motion because, I mean, I don't want to belabor the point, but I think if you're looking for a simple inspection, it's one thing. If you're looking for a more sophisticated inspection, it's another thing. To Councillor Jeffrey's point, I think my preference would be to come back with an analysis that reflect what we would normally do under the circumstances, and then provide the council some options to do a further analysis if that's what's required or warranted. So I think there should be something in the motion that reflects that perspective.
So I'm going to look to Councillor Madigan for, this would not be a friendly, or you want to amend this friendly? We do that? Just a direct amendment? Okay, so we're going to do a full-on amendment to this motion that would reflect what we just heard from the CAO. So it would be, I gather, moved by yourself and seconded by Councillor Berman, that staff undertake a further close visual inspection and come back to council with a report about options or the status of the building and options, if necessary, for a more intrusive, thorough examination and costs of that. Councillor or Deputy Mayor.
Just to clarify, given that they're both the same structure, are we talking about both buildings or specifically just the aquatic facility?
I'll look to Councillor Madigan, but I think based on the answer we got to Councillor McLeod's question, we're really just looking at the pool.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, my concern is it's a start. It's a eyes wide open. Everything's the walls are open, the floors are open. So let's have a look. But I don't want to belabor the point. I don't want to have our users have to go somewhere else. It needs to be fixed. I am not thinking to wait for BLT. I'm not going to really take their word for it. I'm going to wait and let other pros do it. So I'm not looking for anything in depth. It's a start. And it's a start so we don't have any unforeseen things happen in the next few months. I'm not looking 5 years out. I'm not looking 10 years out.
Okay. So with that said, unless there's any further questions or comments, I'm calling the vote on the amendment. Councillor Comey?
Yeah, not to delay the vote, but just quickly, because we keep mentioning the user groups in the pool, your worship, so could Director Culver just reiterate what we've done to communicate with them, what we're doing to communicate to our residents at large about the delay?
Director Culver?
So through your worship to Councillor Comey, we've prepared all the user groups for the additional closure, including the Clipper swim team. We met with the Clippers board today. Board member Barb O'Connor is in the audience actually tonight. She was at that meeting today. We're trying to find creative ways that we may be able to get the Clippers back in the pool a little sooner. There's no guarantees on that, but obviously we're going to work and do everything we can to try and make that happen. There's still optimism that the October 20th meet they had been planning to host will be able to occur, and we're going to do everything in our power to help them, subject to meeting all the health unit requirements. The fall start to registration is going to be delayed from September 17th to September 24th. However, at this point, it's possible that we'll not need to delay the start of fall swim lessons. But impacted groups include our Aquafit groups, which is one of our most popular programs, the Special Olympics group, high schools, elementary schools, and others.
Thank you, that's a big task, thank you for taking that on.
All right. I'm going to call the vote then. All in favor of the amendment for the request for the visual inspection and the report? That is carried unanimously. Then we'll go back to the original motion, which is the approval of the additional expenditure of $32,500 to add drains to the floor of the Centennial Aquatic Center change rooms. We've had good discussion. I'm going to call the vote. All in favor? That is also carried unanimously. And that takes us to 12 motions. Councillor Hanlon, you had a request for a staff report.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll read out my motion and then I was hoping I could just speak to it briefly. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor MacLeod. Be it resolved that Council directs staff to incorporate in the pending traffic calming report research and recommended methods or tools that promote the use of appropriate roadways as facilities for unstructured play. Mr. Mayor, certainly over the years, Collingwood has shown great leadership in encouraging a healthy lifestyle for residents of all ages. And this ranges from the Healthy Kids Challenge we had last year to adult pole walking at the library to what I just found out about recently from Director Culver is we offered the neighborhoods all the support they need to create outdoor ice rinks on town-owned land. This evening I'm seeking support that will for a staff report that will provide us with a roadmap to encourage our children to get outside, to play outside, and to use our local residential streets as part of a safe play initiative. Safe street play is an international movement. In Canada, we have, in Quebec, about 18 municipalities now that have adopted a certain model. Streets are self-selected by local residents to allow and encourage safe street play on a daily basis. Toronto and other large cities have adopted a slightly different model and they close streets completely for certain days of the year. My request is for a made in Collingwood solution that will examine what's been done elsewhere and pull it together, looking at the best of what the others have done. I have spoken to our Director of Parks, Rec and Culture, our Director of Engineering Public Works, our CAO, and the motion I bring forward tonight is some words that they have come up for me that they feel would be workable. So that's all my remarks. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, any questions or comments? Councillor Comey.
Thank you. Through your worship to Councillor Hanlon. Councillor Hanlon, I heard you on CBC radio this morning. You did a great job and it was so interesting. My question for you is, I thought I heard it mentioned that if adopted, this would become the first municipality in Ontario to take on such a program?
As I mentioned, the City of Toronto has an initiative slightly different where they actually close certain streets for certain days of the year. But I think this would be a leading initiative in Ontario if we were to adopt such a thing. And if I could just also add, I've had a look at the participation study that was done in 2018, and it is shocking how low Canadian children's activities levels are compared to what's being recommended. So this is all part of that. Let's have a healthy community that Collingwood's so good at encouraging.
Good. All right, unless there's any comments or questions, I will call the vote. Yes, Deputy Mayor.
Just a comment of or question of clarification. So supportive, thank you. And this is being rolled into another report that's coming back.
Yes.
And just for public interest, when is that report anticipated?
The traffic calming report, I'll look to Director McDonald, but I know based on the meeting I had with Inspector Shannon last week at Municipal Law Enforcement that the OPP is very interested in this initiative. So it seems like there is a good groundswell of concern on all parts of the of our municipality, from law enforcement to staff and Parks and Rec, and we want to make sure we do this in a safe, responsible way. So, Director McDonald, do you have an idea, and if this is going to delay that timeline, do you have any idea when?
We're in a data collection stage right now, collecting information for other municipalities, but it's also, this report is, it's in addition to our normal work plan, and we're extremely busy right now with our other operations and development reviews, etc. So I do not anticipate this report coming until the new year. There's a lot of information here, a lot of options and opportunities. As you've mentioned, the OPP is interested. We're setting up meetings with the OPP, so this is just with respect to the traffic calming aspect of the report. This certainly will add some time to research this aspect of it as well. So I do not anticipate our traffic calming report to come before council or committee until the new year.
Thank you. Councillor McLeod.
Through you, Your Worship, just for a point of clarification, following up on Director McDonald's comments about staff reports and staff being asked to do a lot. I wonder if I might ask through you, Your Worship, to the CAO, just how many staff reports have we got sort of in the pipe since this group was inaugurated, or in the pipe just in general right now?
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you to Councillor McLeod. We've got approximately 30 reports that has been requested by this council. These reports do not include any of our normal business reports from engineering, from transportation, from Parks and Rec, on customer service, nor the report from the clerk dealing with governance. And none of this include any of the big strategic reports that are pending that are pending and need to come before council. That includes the community-based strategic plan, the fiscal plan for 2020, the budget, the proceeds from the asset sales, the issues around the official plan, I did mention the community-based strategic plan, and also the report back on asset sales. So to Director McDonald's point, we've had a number of reports that are pending, and I think we'll use our best judgment to try and prioritize these reports. And I think it would have to be based on what's most urgent, and some of the ongoing operation of these other municipality will take precedent over some of these reports that are being requested.
And I guess the good news there is that in terms of street play, there is no prohibition in Collingwood on street play. So I've played many ball hockey games out in front of my house with my boys, and there's lots of basketball courts that are set up in cul-de-sacs. So in the interim, while this is being worked out, because this is a very interesting initiative, there is no prohibition, unlike our neighbors in Quebec, where the initiatives were to remove prohibitions or provide exemptions. So I think it's a very interesting opportunity, and but in the interim, people are welcome to play in the streets carefully, and adults should be watching and supervising. And it's a question of respect, so a notice to all our motorists when you drive through our community that you can expect to see people playing on the streets. And if we're done with that, then I am now going to call the vote. All in favor of the staff report request? That is carried unanimously. Next up is bylaws, 13.1, bylaw number 2019-061. Who would have that?
I have that, Mayor Saunderson.
Councillor Jeffrey.
Moved by me, seconded by Councillor Berman, be it resolved that bylaw number 2019-061, being a bylaw to appoint a member to the Collingwood Heritage Committee, be enacted and passed the 16th day of September 2019. And that appointment is Kelly Nesbitt for a 3-year term expiring March 31st, 2022. So welcome her to the committee after the vote.
Thank you. And with that said, I will call the vote. All in favor? That is carried unanimously. Notices of motion. There is one. Are there others before I read my notice of motion? Seeing none, I am putting this on record to be addressed at the next council meeting on September 30th. The council herein allocate the proceeds from the 2019 Mayor's Golf Tournament as follows. 1, 50% to Special Olympics, and 2, 50% to Home Horizons Youth Reconciliation and Placement Programs. So we'll be dealing with that on September 30. No other notices of motion? Seeing none, then we will move, well, you gave a county report last meeting. Deputy Mayor, I don't know if you've got more to add now, or we'll defer till next.
No, I was just going to say that as of 6:22 p.m. I haven't had a notice of recurring waste collection, so fingers crossed, touch wood.
See when we get home.
That's right.
All right then, council business, 16.1, old or deferred business? Any old or deferred business? 16.2, other business. I'm going to call up Martin Ridlow for an update on the economic development update and the Mayor's Task Force.
Good evening, Mayor Saunderson, Council, staff. It gives me great pleasure to come and give you an update on the Economic Development Action Plan. As you may recall, this was one of our 6 priorities for 2019. We've spent the good part of 2019 working on actually developing a framework that we believe will meet the needs of the town of Collingwood. We've developed a timeline that actually allows us to, if you will, plug it into the economic pillar that's being worked on as part of the evolved community-based strategic plans for making sure that these are all parts that can fit together. We've also hired a strategic consultant with international experience. I'll talk to this a little bit later through the presentation. Importantly, what I'm presenting today is a framework overview with a request for council to listen, review it, and let us know if we've missed anything. Next slide, please. What's the motivation for an economic plan? Well, ultimately it's to diversify the tax base so the municipality can fund services that make Collingwood an attractive place to live and work. And diversification really means making sure the residential base is not overburdened, and rather that we can diversify that tax base across industrial, commercial taxpayers as well in a fair kind of way. That means helping established businesses grow. That means attracting investors as well as entrepreneurs and converting them into local businesses based in the town of Collingwood. And it's all about ensuring the right conditions exist for a new wave of businesses coming and growing in Collingwood. And they are coming. Many of them have already set up here. What is the project mandate? It's for a 6-month project with a clear mission to produce an economic development action plan that will market and sell Collingwood to investors and employers. And there are 5 key deliverables. The most important thing as you read through them is what's the difference between this one and the prior economic development plan that was worked on and approved in 2015. That was our first economic development plan in several years. And it was very much foundational in terms of what it was all about. It was more functional, more organizationally oriented. How does the BDC work? How do we set up social media? How do we start doing informational tours? How do we set up a business database? What we want this economic development action plan is to be more deliberate, more focused, more investment attraction focused, to make sure that we can truly diversify the tax base. Next slide. The framework that we've come up with is based on 5 key components. 1, we want to have a strategic facilitator to guide the process and its quality. Guide is an important component of what this facilitator is going to be doing, as opposed to actually sitting down trying to write a 50-page plan that works for them or is perhaps a replica or a modified replica of others they've written. We want our facilitator to truly guide the process and make sure that it's evidence-based and carries the quality that we're looking for. Second of all, we want a business advisory team of experts to actually help draft the plan. And it's important to stress the word draft. In past economic development plans I've been involved with, there are discussions that are held with business leaders, other stakeholders. They're not necessarily sitting there actually drafting the plan in the time that you've got with them. And that is a dramatic difference in what we're recommending here that, if you will, is a little bit different than what would typically be done with an economic development plan. The third framework component is to have staff resources available to provide evidence and to help corroborate the plan components, and have those resources available as opposed to paying consultants to go out there and do that work. We've got a lot of that information already at our fingertips. We don't need to be paying someone else to be doing that. The fourth component is engagement with the public to validate the plan. As you'll see, we're proposing actually 5 different engagement points throughout this. And last but not least, staff collaboration with the facilitator to write the report. Once again, we're not going to be paying a facilitator to go out there and spend lots of expensive hours writing the report. They're going to be working with staff to make sure that that is something that is an actionable recommendation. The advisory team, next slide, is a key component of this. And the purpose of this advisory team is to provide expert insights and help build a plan during a 2-day work session. That's really the key task that they have. The recommended size from the consultants of having on this advisory team is about 12 to 15 business leaders. And these business leaders would bring a diverse set of areas of expertise to this advisory team. That includes someone that, or several people that bring established, successful, large business experience in town, a high-growth, newer, small business in town, a recognized business leader with expertise in large-scale growth projects, an entrepreneurial established business leader considering investing in Collingwood's emerging tech hub and in Collingwood, right? So we're really going out there and reaching out to those that we want to ultimately understand what will work for them. And last but not least, a private or public sector expert in attracting companies to invest and grow in smaller companies. The concept behind bringing together this advisory team is actually opening up through Engage Collingwood and having a portal where they actually apply, where they specifically identify the 1 or 2 skill sets that they would be bringing to the advisory team, including the resume, to really make sure that we're clear and understand what skill sets they're bringing. Ultimately, the selection committee would involve the consultant, Director Farr, and myself. And the mayor's role would be to chair that work session that would take place at the end of November. Importantly, to add some gravitas to it by having it called the Mayor's Advisory Team to make sure that these business leaders are really the caliber that we're looking for and understand the importance of it overall. The last slide is the overall framework timeline spanning from September through to February. I'll highlight the 5 key points of engagement and opportunity for the public to input. First of all, in terms of applications to the advisory team, that's a major opportunity to get key people to come in and apply, and that's a very public process that we want to have. We certainly encourage council members as well as others to please pass that on. We'll be letting you know when that opens up, hopefully later on this week, so that we have great applications. Second of all, we do want to open up a portal that will specifically ask businesses and business leaders overall for input into ideas that they may have about economic development and the future of economic development in Collingwood. We do want to have the work session, and once again, we're working with the advisor to figure out how council members can be part of that work session. We want to have a broader engagement with the community to validate the plan in January. And of course, presentations to the standing committee with updates throughout, leading up to the final draft presentation in February. So in total, we have 5 framework components, we have 5 deliverables, and 5 ways to engage in what I'm calling the 5x5x5 plan. And the question is, have we missed anything? Certainly welcome feedback today, tomorrow, and do you have any potential people for the advisory team? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Martin. Council, any questions or comments for Martin? No, well, I'm sure he'll be happy to hear from you in the coming days if you have any questions or comments. Thank you. Any other business? Councillor Jeffrey.
Thank you, Mayor Saunderson. I just wanted to ask about reporting on some of the things that came out of FCM in the meetings last week for our next meeting. If there's time under other business to do an FCM report, I'd like to do maybe a 3 to 5 minute on the election platform to educate council in terms of how to engage the candidates and the things that are important to municipalities. By the grace of whatever, the writ was dropped right in the middle of our meetings and we were ready. So we've already started that process through social media. And then also to do a bit of summary on the other business that came out of that, including the sustainable goals development markers for our strategic plan, because we're just refreshing. So I just wanted to do a little bit of information on that too. So
We will put you on the agenda for next meeting.
thank you.
Seeing no other business, who would have the motion to go in camera?
I have that, your worship.
Councillor Doherty.
Moved by me and seconded by Councillor Comey. Be it resolved, whereas the CAO hereby concurs that the reasons for the in-camera session have been duly reviewed and considered, and the matters are authorized under the exception provisions to conduct a closed session in accordance with the Municipal Act prior to proceeding into closed session. Therefore, be it resolved that this council proceeds in camera in order to address a matter pertaining to the receiving of advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, and personnel matters about an identifiable individual, including town or local board employees. And the item for discussion is a personnel matter.
Council, any questions or comments before I call the vote? All in favor? That is carried unanimously. So that concludes our broadcast and live stream for the time being. I guess it remains to be seen if there'll be a rise and report, but we will be back for that confirmatory bylaw. So thank you for joining us. Have a good week.